This podcast is brought to you by the voices in my head, and viewers like you. Hello, and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, our monthly review discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Don't ask what accent that was, even I don't know. Anyway.
I think it may have been Swiss, but I'm not even going to try to guess.
Oh dear. But yeah, here we are in the month of April, and unfortunately we're too late to make any April Fool's jokes, but I can tell you that you have all been fooled. We're recording this at the end of March, so hey.
Yeah, we are spectacularly early. It probably works out in our favor.
Yeah, well, the first time we're ever early for anything. Anyway,
This will be the first and last time I'm ever early for anything in my life. Anyway.
Yeah, let's go while the going's good and get started with
Q&A!
This is a section where we answer questions from the audience. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave them in the comments or send them to me via Twitter with the hashtag MBQuestion.
Our first question comes from Infernity Zero.
Going back to what I asked you before about Zelda having voice actors, which actor do you think would be the best choice for Link? Personally, I'd pick Yuri Lowenthal.
You know, that's an interesting choice, but A, somehow I prefer Link being mute, and B, I would never, ever be able to associate Link with Sasuke.
Well, if it helps, Yuri does have some good hero voices. Like, he did voice Luke in Tales of the Abyss, so...
That is true, and he did voice whoever the hell was the protagonist of Code Geass. I don't even remember. It has been so long since I watched the first episode of that series.
Actually, wasn't it Johnny Young Bosch? I can't remember.
Yeah, Johnny Young Bosch voiced Lelouch, but Yuri Lowenthal voiced the main actual protagonist.
Oh, I get
I
ya.
completely forget.
Yeah, that's fair enough. My problem is, I don't mind the idea of Link having a voice actor. My only question would be, which one? Because there are multiple Links, as stressed in that blog series I made years ago. And,
50,000 links through space and time.
Yeah, more or less. So, it all depends on which version. Like, I could definitely see Yuri voicing either the adult Link from Ocarina of Time or the Link from Skyward Sword. It's when you get into characters like the Hero of Winds from Wind Waker, who are a bit more childlike, or like the Link from Twilight Princess, who is a bit more muscular and fierce, that you start requiring a different range, let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's kinda like the Zelda conundrum, really. Because you have as many Zeldas as you do Links.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue here. I mean, Louis Lawful would definitely fit a good chunk of Links, but the youngest character I think he's ever voiced is Rickon in Fire Emblem Awakening, and even then, he's not that young, at least not compared to some of the other Links.
Yeah, we're talking like, I don't know, 15, 16.
Yeah, so when I saw this question, I was trying to think of the actors I knew who could do good child voices. The ones I can think of always had a slight snooty quality to them, which I don't think fits Link. Like, I was thinking of maybe Kali no Shishanase, the voice actress for Gina Sage and Konohamaru from Naruto, but they both have that kind of bratty quality to their voice, which fits them, but not Link so much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It is very, very hard to discern something like that when they all have personality qualities that just kinda don't fit Link.
Yeah, I mean, the closest I can think of was maybe Kate Higgins, since she did a good boy voice for Tails, but again, that might be a bit too, I guess, smart-sounding for Link, but it certainly fits. I did also briefly think, I'm sorry if I butcher her name, Connie Klinkberg, the voice of Gohan. The only problem is, after so many years of playing the Teen Gohan and Luffy, her voice now has a very gravelly tone to it. It's very noticeable in Xenoverse when she tries to play a Gohan that's younger than teenage. It sounds really odd.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And what's funny is you just went through all of my Kid Link suggestions.
Oh, sorry.
Well, we had the same idea, so it's good that simultaneously our ideas are shot down at the same time.
Really? Normally it would be a better idea to have a backup.
Well, that's Kid Link, who I didn't really give any thought until just now. And those are the names that came to my head immediately, so it was like, maybe Jetus's voice? No, there that one goes. Maybe Tails' voice? No, there that one goes.
Yeah.
Luffy? Nope, there that one goes.
I think Kid Link would actually be the hardest one to cast. I mean, say we would go for the more adult teenage Link, who do you think would fit in some of the others? Like, let's say if Yuri couldn't make it.
Well, if I had to choose, I would actually choose the voice actor that is currently voicing Link in an online show that I've kind of sort of watched. Todd Haberkorn.
Oh yeah, he was also the villain in the second season of Sword Art Online, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he was Ling in Full Metal Alchemist, and Natsu, actually.
Nice.
I don't pick him for any one of those particular roles. I pick him because I know that, of all people, Todd Haberkorn is definitely versatile enough to do pretty much any character type.
Yeah, that would definitely be a good choice. The funny thing is, when I was going through like the different incarnations of Link, thinking who would voice that one, who would voice that one, when staring at the Twilight Princess Link, for some reason Sam Riegel entered my mind.
I need to look him up as a voice actor again, because I never remember what he sounds like. I know he's Phoenix Wright. Actually, I know he's Phoenix Wright. Wow, that would work.
He also plays a very entertaining gnome in the show Critical Role, which I recommend checking out.
I still need to actually give that show a proper watch.
The other thing about Laura Bailey would probably be another good candidate, since if memory serves, she also played Kid Trunks for a while in Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, that's true. And unlike poor colleague Clinkenbeard, it hasn't completely ruined her voice since.
Well, it's not like it's ruined her voice, it's just made it completely inappropriate for Link.
Yeah, for that character, I mean.
Yeah. Unless Link suddenly got a massive confidence boost.
Wow, we derailed this conversation, then re-railed it completely full circle.
Oh dear. Well, on the positive side, we've given a lot of shout-outs to different voice actresses.
That's true. My answer to adult Link is now at this point pretty much Todd Haberkorn and Sam Riegel. But as far as Kid Link goes, tentatively Laura Bailey.
Yeah, I would say either Laura Bailey or Kate Higgins for Child Link, and as for Adult Link, Eurodolfo is definitely a good voice that fits the right teenage bit, and he can definitely do tense very well, but otherwise I'd agree with you on your suggestions.
Awesome.
Our second question this month from the Infinity Zero is as follows.
What's the most intense gaming experience you've ever had?
I know exactly what comes to mind immediately. But you want to go first?
Okay, sure. In my case, three examples come to mind. First is Captain K. Rool from Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country 2, rather. It doesn't matter which version, but either way, it's always so intense because those battles are really long, and even after playing so much, every time I go back to them, I always think, oh, okay, I can just do this and get the ending. Oh my god! Second, and it's one Sven should know pretty well, is the K. Rool in Donkey Kong Jungle Climber.
Oh yeah! Oh, that battle was awesome.
The third, and one I mentioned on Twitter, my first dragon kill in Dragon Age Inquisition.
Oh yeah. In fairness, that would be awesome. It was for me.
Yeah, it was definitely awesome because, for those of you who don't know, in Dragon Age Inquisition, you can explore the world as much as you like, but the dragons are completely optional bosses that just fly around the overworld, which you can fight if you wish. And there was one time when I was just exploring the overworld just so I could level up for the next story mission, and there was a dragon flying overhead, and I just kind of thought, you know what, screw it, I'm probably gonna die, but at least I can just see how much of a chance I had. So, charged in. At first I was being very casual about it, just kind of sort of going through the motions, and then I was sort of realised, oh no, his HP's actually going down, but he's only got 2/3 now, I might actually be able to do this. And that's when it kind of started getting more intense, because you know that if there was like one slight mistake, it could kill me. So it was pretty much just keep those spells up, keep those spells up. Oh god, the tank's dead! Revive, revive, revive!
Oh, wow. Yeah, I could sympathize with that, because it reminds me of fighting the High Dragon in Dragon Age 2.
Yeah. Those are the main examples that come to my head. Sven, which one?
Well, there are a few contenders, because I've had intense moments playing Fire Emblem, like reaching the Black Knight for the first time in Path of Radiance. Oh my god. Because that battle is built up for the entire game, and it is insanely difficult when you get to it.
I know, it's unlike any other fight you have in that game.
Yeah, in the series, practically. Because it's like optional super boss levels of difficulty, but you have to go into it.
Yeah, not to mention the fact the story will carry on whether you win or lose. It's basically all down to your skill as to whether you actually can kill him or not.
Yeah, and what's funny about that battle is it's an intense moment every other time you play it, too. Whenever you replay the game, if you're anything like me, you are preparing for the Black Knight incessantly for 26 chapters.
Yeah, it's one of the main reasons why, yes, I know Mister's slightly less stats compared to Reese, but damn it, she's the only healer that gets into that match.
Yeah, exactly. But, that being said, that is not the candidate I've chosen for the most intense gaming moment I've had. And granted, there are other moments from Fire Emblem, like the first time fighting Sonya in Fire Emblem 7, because that was just cathartic. But, putting those aside, and they are great moments, my most intense video game moment ever is the battle against Remiel in Tales of Symphonia. I don't have the words to explain just what kind of emotions ran through my head whenever I first reached that cutscene. It ran the gamut from anxiety to horrible sadness whenever you learn the truth about Colette, and then it ran to just overwhelming rage whenever Remiel pretty much outed himself as a liar and a traitor.
Yeah, I know. That was such a great scene, and I think it's also pretty awesome the fact that he's challenging but not absurdly difficult as well, so I can imagine trying to stay on top of him with all the light spells only enhance that fury.
Yeah, and just, oh god, the atmosphere going into that battle, because he says, I have no further need of any of you, be gone, and then the best boss theme in the entire game starts playing.
Yeah, that was a pretty great scene. In fact, actually, you've reminded me, there is one other experience which, and I don't know if it's the intense I've ever played, but it's one that always has me on the edge of my seat, and I'm not going to name him because of spoilers, but the guy who comes in after that.
Oh yeah, that too. Basically, that entire sequence is fantastic. Just A+ storytelling and A+ atmosphere. That moment is pretty much the reason I replay Tales of Symphonia, because the game starts out so slow, but once it reaches that moment, it kicks off like you wouldn't believe. It's one of the biggest tone changes and pacing changes I've ever seen in an RPG. It's just so singular.
Yeah, it's just, oh god, it's awesome.
Pretty much, I love everything about that entire sequence.
Yeah, that was definitely a good choice, my friend.
I thought you'd approve.
Oh yes, I definitely do.
Point is, those are our choices. 3 from Jonin, Remiel from me.
Yep, indeed.
Our next question comes from Roy Havenstone, who asks,
What are your thoughts on the Donkey Kong Country television show?
Jonin, if you want to talk about this TV show that I remember vaguely seeing one episode of whenever I was 6, I would much appreciate it.
Yeah, actually, I'm surprised this question hasn't come up sooner, given that I've made no secret I'm a Donkey Kong fan.
Guess no one thought of it until now.
Yeah, it's kind of strange, because when I first got into Donkey Kong Country, and I was excited when I found out Donkey Kong Country had a TV show. I asked a friend of my sister's to record it because she was the only one who actually had cable, because that was the only way you could see it at the time. So I had this one VHS with 6 episodes, which me and my sister would continuously watch, and I remembered us enjoying it then. So there is a bit of childhood nostalgia there. But I'm not sure if it's a show that really stands the test of time, namely because I will give them props that they tried to match the look of Donkey Kong Country by making the 3D models. The problem was, well, Pixar it's not.
Yeah, I remember that much about it.
The fact that some more mean people are saying that Diddy's a duck-billed platypus in that case.
Okay, now I have to see this and compare for myself.
Yeah, yeah, honestly, it wasn't the best show in the world. Like, the plots were pretty much goofy, and they kind of changed the premise so that it was all around King K. Rool trying to grab this one crystal coconut, and there was barely any action in it, because it usually resulted in Donkey Kong jumping down and leaping onto a switch, which then activated the, basically the same trap that always got them each time, so it was kind of formulaic in that sense.
Oh my god, he's a duck-billed platypus.
You found the image then.
Several of them. Oh my god, that is mildly horrifying. Clicking off that. Keep going, good sir.
Honestly, I think the more horrifying thing is the fact that Funky has sunglasses, but they're animated like his eyes. It's really weird.
Wow. It's like Homestuck, whenever either John or Jake get their glasses punched off and their eyes go west.
Yeah, it's not the greatest show in the world, but I definitely don't think it's the worst thing that happened either. Like, there are some good qualities to it. I do like the voice cast for one. It has a good Diddy and a good Cranky, and whilst it's a more comedic version of Karul, I wish I could remember his name on the top of my head, but the voice actor for that gives a really good performance, balancing the right amounts of authoritative and extremely hammy.
Yeah, as you do.
I also do like Donkey Kong's voice. I mean, I know that in private you've mentioned that you don't think it really fits, and I will admit it's not a perfect voice, but I kind of like the fact that they decided to focus more on the chilled and carefree side of Donkey Kong than going with the obvious, I am an ape, so I am very big and gruff and tough and also very dumb.
Yeah, like, you know, Donkey Kong 64.
Oh god. Yeah, so it's not a perfect voice, but yeah, I prefer that to, hey, cool. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like John St. John is Duke Nukem.
Yeah. So, I do think it has some good qualities to it, but I will admit it has so many flaws. Like, I will not forgive it for how they portrayed Dixie, basically completely nerfing any of the good qualities she had for the girly girl stuff, and also, there's one element I should probably talk about. There are songs in the episodes, which, okay, it's a bit questionable, but I don't mind it. I mean, there are times when the songs do actually improve certain sequences, like there's one standard episode where Diddy and Candy are debating who gets to have the most time with Donkey Kong, and their argument was in song, which was a lot more enjoyable than a standard conversation would be. The problem is, there are 2 songs per episode, so the plot time is cut in half, and they're often desperately reaching for moments to start a song.
Oh, so basically Pixar it is not in terms of graphics, and Disney it is not in terms of song.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. There were some songs that were enjoyable, but there were also moments like, there was one episode I do remember distinctly from childhood, which is basically Cranky spending 2 minutes explaining to Donkey Kong, I'm a hologram, I can't push a button. That's 2 minutes you could have spent on something else, guys. Instead, you had Cranky just repeating the same point over and over again. The only saving thing about it was that Cranky suddenly gets back in character at the end of it and just goes, you can't do anything. How much longer shall I sing? Don't you understand? You can't push red buttons.
Oh, well, at least there's that.
So, yeah, overall, I think it's enjoyable, but it's not a masterpiece. It's just, I'd say only watch it if you're curious and you're a Donkey Kong fan. Otherwise, it's probably best to leave it in the sands of time.
Yeah. I guess it's better than some animated forays video games have taken, and yeah, by the sound of things, it's not the worst thing that's happened to Donkey Kong. That was Mario vs. Donkey Kong.
Don't remind me about that. And hey, the music could be worse. I mean, we could have another session of ridiculous rapping rhymes.
Please, no.
But we better move swiftly on from that. Roy's second question, taking us away from video games but still remaining animated.
With the announcement of Frozen 2, which Disney sequels that aren't made by Pixar could you see yourself recommending to people for whatever reason?
Disney sequels, okay. I think this is mostly me.
Well, I've seen one or two. In fact, there is one I would like to recommend to people. But yeah, I'll let you go first, since I think you'll probably have more to say.
There is exactly one Disney sequel I can recommend to anyone, and that's The Lion King 2. Even it's not all that great, it's basically just rehashed Romeo and Juliet, but at least some thought was given to the plot.
Damn it, you took my one as well.
Somehow I had a feeling, because it is literally the only good sequel Disney has ever produced.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, it's not as good as the original Lion King, but I still think it's pretty decent as a follow-up, because, okay, I will address one thing. Kiara is annoying. I'm not gonna lie about that for a moment. And Timon and Pumbaa's forced comic relief was grating at times, but I think the general basis of the plot is pretty interesting. Like, I do enjoy the fact that Kovu and Simba have interesting conflicts, because you've got Simba trying to be a good father and rule a kingdom without being too strict, whilst you have Kovu completely raised to be the successor to Scar, but wanting to break away from that when he realizes that Scar was actually a bit of a douche.
Yeah, to say the least.
Oh yeah, I think for those qualities alone, I think that makes it an interesting sequel. And yes, before anyone mentions it, it is a big plot hole that there's just a bunch of lions that followed Scar, but you know what, I'm willing to roll with it in this case.
Yeah, and it's really funny looking back on The Lion King 2, because not only is Simba's voice actor during the music sequences Cam Clark, aka Kratos, Kovu's voice actor, Jason Marsden, I later realized was Rosh Pennon from Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, and Craig Boone from Fallout New Vegas. So suffice it to say, I cannot see either of those characters the same way again.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I definitely like it for the conflicts those two characters go through, which is why it's kind of a shame that Kiara's the actual protagonist.
Yeah, all I would have asked for was better writing in that regard, to be quite honest. And better comedy, because that always strikes Disney sequels.
Yeah, that's the problem. They had some funny lines, but the majority of the time it was basically Timon and Pumbaa forcing themselves into the middle of the dramatic scenes and making references to stuff that well, frankly, how the hell does a meerkat know about beepers and potpourri?
Yeah, the comedy, let's just say, wasn't exactly on Lion King 1 levels.
No, although one thing I will say was definitely on Lion King 1 levels. I really wish I could remember the name of the song. All I know is the first two lines of Deception, Disgrace, when Kovu is actually banished. It's just so perfect for the moment and the way it's plotted out.
Oh yeah, not one of us. I will say that. The music is fantastic.
Yeah, and also, was it That's My Lot in Life, Xena's song as well?
My Lullaby, actually.
That's My Lullaby, that's it. Oh, okay. I always misheard it as a child, that's why.
Once again, the villain song does kind of stand head and shoulders.
Yeah, and Xena, while she is basically a one-dimensional psycho, she is like a really good villain. But, like I said, the main weakness of the film is Kiara. The main reason is she's okay as a character, and it is kind of an amusing twist that the Lion Cub we see raised up at the end of The Lion King turns out to be a girl. But Simba and Kovu, like I said, they're interesting characters because they constantly go through tough conflicts, and they don't have all of the answers. They're desperately trying to figure stuff out, and Kiara, she just suddenly gets the answers, like, in a snap, like that. Like, she just instantly knows what the answer is to pretty much any conflict. And so you've got this whiny character who somehow knows the answer to anything. Like, her only weakness is she's crap at hunting. But aside from that, like, there's the big moments where the two families are fighting and they come back during the climax, and she's somehow able to dispel what is years of conflict and hatred by just going, them, us, look at them, they are us. What differences do you see? That's it. That's all she does. That's apparently all you needed to say to dispel this entire family feud.
Yeah, there's no two ways about it. Mary Sue everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like the people who try to deny that Micaiah was one in Fire Emblem 10.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other video. But anyway, it also doesn't help that, like Sven said, it's kind of playing along the lines of Romeo and Juliet, and one of the songs is Inupandi, which, kind of like Hakuna Matata, is dancing around the idea of young love. So he starts going on this song using fantastical imagery, like where the passion fruit grows sweet and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, like, during, like, just before the last chorus, you hear Kiara go in the background, "Oh, you pandy, it means love, doesn't it?" Really? You think the kids are that stupid?
Yeah, that's the problem that a lot of Disney sequels have. They're kind of intelligence insulting.
Yeah. But if you ignore Kiara, Simba's Pride is still a really good sequel. Obviously not as good as The Lion King, but still a really interesting film in its own right. So if you like the first one, which me and my sister did religiously as children, then yeah, I can definitely recommend watching it.
Yep, like me, wow, you would not believe how into that movie I was whenever I was younger. And now, I could see its flaws, but I still gotta maintain what I liked about it then, which is, for a Romeo and Juliet hash-up, pretty much, it's an interesting story. And as always, it's Disney. I love the music.
Yeah, I will agree. It's flawed, but still good in its own right.
Okay, our next question comes from Vice of Legends.
People want another Paper Mario, but with the original turn-based RPG style it had. If this does happen, what would you want them to add to the battle system to make it fresh while also staying true to its original turn-based style?
Have fun with this, because I've never played Paper Mario.
Okay, have you played any of the Mario RPGs, just for the record?
Nope.
Right, okay. Oh, this is tricky. I would definitely like the partners back, because I feel Sticker Star and Super Paper Mario was a bit weaker without them. I mean, yeah, there were the pixels in Super Paper Mario, but I don't count them because they were just so bland. They're basically just shapes with gameplay functions. That's literally all they are.
You know, funnily enough, that is exactly what I feel about all the characters in Fire Emblems 5 and earlier.
Wow, that's harsh, but anyway. I know there are some people who'd be very angry with you about that one.
Okay, I'll relegate myself to a comment that I think we can all agree on. Funnily enough, that's what I thought about the characters in Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon.
Okay, that one I can agree on, but still. Oh dear, but yeah, getting back on topic. Off the top of my head, the only thing I can think of is maybe bring back the partners, but then have something similar to Superstar Saga's Bro moves, which were basically when you have the two characters tag teaming for more powerful moves. Maybe not quite as silly as Superstar Saga's could be. Like, there is one move where Luigi hammers Mario into a ball and then literally hits them like a baseball bat with a hammer. They probably don't need to go that far, but that probably would be something interesting to us to have, like, a tag team function between Mario and the partners. They can maybe experiment that way, like if they had another Koopa partner, either having Mario knocking it back and forth with a hammer or riding on it, I don't know. I'm not a game designer. But I'd say just adding the extra options to the turn-based battle system would be enough. Like, 1,000 Year Door, that had a system that was pretty similar to Paper Mario, but it added the audience, which was a pretty cool idea. Like, you had to perform attacks a certain way to keep your audience happy so that they would fill up your star meter. It was a nice way to add extra options, but keep the battle system more or less the same to what worked in Paper Mario. And I think the problem with the Paper Marios after that was that they kind of got a bit too experimental. I guess that's the
Dare I ask for examples?
Well, Sticker Star was basically entirely based around stickers, and I mentioned it many, many times on this show, but Super Paper Mario, the best way I can describe it is it was kind of an unholy hybrid between a platformer and an RPG, so you were moving around like a Mario platformer, as in you jumped on the enemies, but the jumps did a certain amount of damage based on your stats and how powerful you were, so it can either be described as a very, very slow platformer or an unexciting RPG, basically.
Yeah, I can see the issue in that.
Yeah, so I honestly think just something similar to the first two Paper Marios, but giving some extra options to open up the strategy, I think that would be the best way to go.
Yeah, that sounds fair enough. In the meantime, all this has taught me is that I need to play a Super Mario RPG at some point.
Yeah, I would recommend either Paper Mario or 1,000 Year Door. Anyway, we've reached the sixth question, and of course it's provided by Toon Junkie. And his question for this month is,
Have you ever heard the sitting duck of Fitchburg perform? I hear it's a transcendent experience.
No, but I wish I could.
I've only heard the cover.
Yeah, I don't think I will ever have such an amazing presence grace the state of all nowhere.
Yeah, unfortunately it won't ever come to North Nowhere, where I live, so I guess that...
Yeah, we're partners in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, so I think we're just gonna have to end it there. So, I'll just take a moment to say thank you to the fans who have sent us an influx of questions since the last two episodes. Just looking at this backlog, I've said we've got a very interesting list coming up, including next month. We have enough questions about Smash Bros. To do an entire section on that.
Well, I'm not complaining.
So, we'll probably do that next month. But for this month, we now move on into...
Reviews!
In which I actually have one! Kind of. I mean, I watched the series 7 years ago, but still.
Okay, fair enough. In that case, you can go first. So, tell me, what did you watch 7 years ago but feel like talking about now?
Well, I watched it 7 years ago and started watching it again recently because I don't even know. Actually, I watched it recently because I found it because... Okay, anecdote time. I got back into this series because I ran into someone who's a fairly major member of the fandom back in 2008, and I found this person because of Steven Universe. This is amusing because the series I'm going to be reviewing is Hellsing.
Wow. Opposite ends of the spectrum?
Complete opposite. But in fairness, it did get me back into a series that I do like reasonably enough, even though in my adulthood I do realize how phenomenally messed up that series was.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So, just to clarify, is this the OVA that was released sometime after, or the original series?
Well, I watched an episode of the original series because I was back into the entire franchise, and man, that thing sucked in comparison, so I swapped back to the OVA.
Fair enough. So, I'll be honest, I've not seen much of Hellsing. All I know about it is that there is a vampire named Alucard who's voiced by Crispin Freeman, and there's something about Nazis. That's all I know.
You know, you pretty much just summed up the entire series.
What, really?
That is pretty much the premise. It's about a vampire named Alucard. Spoiler, by which I mean not spoiler, he's Dracula. Leading off wave upon wave of Nazi zombies. I mean vampires. Oops, Call of Duty.
Wait, hang on, Nazi vampires? Are you...
Yes. It's exactly as ridiculous as it sounds. And that's also pretty much the entire summary of Hellsing. It is ridiculous. The hand levels are past William Shatner. The premise is so over the top it could be a 1980s seinen anime. And... yeah, again...
Well, technically it was.
Actually, it was more like a 1999 seinen anime, but that's beside the point. You know, it's a really surreal thing to realize that Naruto and One Piece are older than Hellsing.
Wow.
And Hellsing ended in 2009, so that might tell you how long One Piece has been going on. But I'm not here to complain about One Piece. I'm here to talk about insanely hammy series about Nazi vampires. And I go back to the ham again because it's worth mentioning, this series is hammier than Fist of the North Star.
Wow. That's saying something, given I have seen Fist of the North Star.
Yeah. I point you to the Major's War speech in OVA 4.
Oh god,
yeah. I can't explain this series in any other way than Rule of Cool personified, because, well, I'm gonna point you in the direction of a song that pretty much sums up Hellsing in a nutshell. Still Counting by Volbeat. Why do I say that? Because the main chorus to Still Counting is counting all the assholes in the room.
Wow.
You're not gonna find many heroes in Hellsing, but for some reason you're drawn to it because it is so over the top. The characters are so ridiculous, they are so hammy, it's just pure dumb enjoyment. Kinda like Nazi zombies in Call of Duty.
Okay, so it's pretty much one of those things where you kind of go along for the thrill ride.
Pretty much. And to be fair, the story is pretty solid at moments. I mean, there are honestly effective, quiet, emotional moments at times in between all the blood and carnage. Actually no, they're not hard to pick out, they're made all the more obvious because they're so rare.
Okay, fair enough. So it's not like Ruby where it's Rule of Cool and the plot kind of suffers for it.
Thankfully, no. I mean, most of it is pure dumb carnage, but hey, the emotional moments work.
Ah, well, I'm glad of that at least.
Yeah, and I'm totally not speaking from experience whenever I say that Hellsing is ridiculously fun to make original characters for. That I led into that with I'm totally not, because I'm totally not is totally a lie.
Oh dear. So, I mentioned before that one of the things I know about it is that Crispin Freeman plays the main character Alucard. How's the dub overall for the series? Does his performance deserve the fame?
Absolutely. 100%. I can kind of think of a weak link, but that's only because Katie Gray as Ceres sometimes has accent issues, because the series is set in Britain, and for the most part they do a good job of hiring legitimately British voice actors and voice actresses. But for whatever reason they hired someone from Washington to be Ceres' voice actress, and you can sometimes very clearly tell she's American. But it's nowhere near as bad as it was in the original dub.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a lot worse. If you've ever seen the one, there's a British actor trying to be an actor from Brooklyn with the accent, and it's as painful as it sounds.
Oh god, that sounds horrible. Well, at least I could rest well knowing that it could be worse.
Yeah.
Basically, I completely recommend the dub. It is renowned as one of the best anime dubs ever for good reason. I mean, you have Crispin Freeman in the lead role, and as ADR director. So...
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because weird thing happened with Hellsing Ultimate. In 2008, just after they released Episode 4, Gedeon Entertainment died. Went bankrupt.
Oh.
So, after that point, Funimation took over the series. But they couldn't get the union rights to use all the old voice actors, meaning that they would have to replace the entire cast with Funimation people. So what they did is sell the rights to Crispin Freeman.
Wow. Okay, that is pretty cool, I'm not gonna...
Yeah, basically just to keep the entire original cast intact, they gave the entire dub over to Crispin Freeman. And suffice it to say, awesome job!
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that was an awesome decision on Funimation's part.
Moving away from the dub, what's the accent like? I heard you use the word carnage, so I'm guessing it's bloody.
Yeah, it's Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas levels of brutal. The level of carnage is just insane. It's like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Oh, wow.
In fact, I would love to see Hellsing live action directed by Tarantino.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like the sort of thing he'd be able to pull off.
Yeah. Quentin Tarantino vampire movie. That would be amazing.
Oh, yeah, that definitely sounds right up his alley.
So you can probably tell, judging by the fact that I think Quentin Tarantino would be a perfect choice to direct live action. This series is brutal. If you're not into that, avoid. But if you're like me and don't mind so much, hey, come along for the ride. It's insane.
So, what I'm getting from this is, it's a bloody thrill ride with an excellent dub that you would recommend.
Yeah, it's pretty much a brutal roller coaster ride with an amazing dub and some amazing quiet plot points whenever it actually goes, more thoughtful and intellectual with its presentation of the plot. So to this day, I recommend Hellsing wholeheartedly. I also recommend the Hellsing Abridged series wholeheartedly because, funnily enough, Hellsing is so ridiculous and over the top and the humor is so insane sometimes that you can barely abridge it with changing anything.
Yeah, that's the one by Team 4-Star, if I remember correctly, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's funny, I've watched that series, and like I said, they barely change anything. They just make it a bit funnier, and that's it. Because the rest of the series is so over the top, the jokes make themselves. Like I said, it is all dumb fun, and for some reason you find yourself enjoying the characters even though they are massive assholes. Pretty much if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you'll like this series.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. I'd say that's a good recommendation.
Yeah, and as far as Carnage goes, if you're not into that sort of thing, I would still recommend this series over Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones is nauseating at times. This series is just bloody hilarious.
Yeah, that I can understand now. There's a difference between trying to hype up the shock value and just saying, look, we're doing this for the fun of it.
Yeah, and that's pretty much Hellsing in a nutshell, so yeah, wholeheartedly recommend it if you're into that sort of thing. And as a fan of Castlevania and Game of Thrones, I was into that sort of thing.
I can just imagine, if they ever re-release a DVD, it's a cross between Castlevania and Game of Thrones, Sven the Crusader on the back.
Oh my god, if I release the novel I'm writing in that time and it becomes really super famous, and then I get to have a blurb quote on the back of the Hellsing re-release, my life will be made.
Yeah. Oh dear.
I have some weird priorities.
Okay, on my end, what I'm reviewing this month is a series that, funnily enough, is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, but does have Crispin Freeman voicing one of the villains.
Huh. I'm curious.
Yep. The series I'm going to review, it concerns a character I've already reviewed recently on the podcast. It's a series created by Greg Weisman, who some of you may know as the creator of Gargoyles, another critically acclaimed cartoon series, Spectacular Spiderman.
Oh, a Spider-Man cartoon. This ought to be good.
Yeah, I'm going to assume most of you know who Spider-Man is, so there's not really much point in explaining the premise.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly know Spider-Man. I know him as the guy I prefer to Batman.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you should mention that, because there's not much I can say plot-wise without just listing off a series of examples, but I'm going to say up front, I really, really like this series. And part of the reason for that is that the big problem that happens with a lot of superhero fiction is that they want to try and make it more adult, more grounded in reality, but they tend to overcompensate. Like with Man of Steel, everything is put through this grey, dingy filter that drains out the colour, and they have characters basically trying to make excuses for all of the superpowered stuff and being embarrassed about it. Like, just to quickly diverge, one of the conversations I hated throughout Man of Steel was this moment when two military guys are talking to each other, and the conversation goes, "Where's Lois Lane?" "Oh, she's talking to Superman." "Superman? That's what they're calling him, sir." It's like, oh my god, if you're that embarrassed by the fact that your character's called Superman, why the feck are you making this movie?
Yeah.
The reason I mention all that is because Spectacular Spider-Man doesn't do any of that. It has, like, the same quality writing of something like Batman, the animated series, but aesthetically it's completely the opposite direction. It actually thinks about all the little details. It tells some faintly mature story subject, it treats its kids like adults, but it doesn't feel the need to completely change the look and feel of Spider-Man in order to match it. The style is actually very simplistic and very, very bright. If Batman is just the darkest shadow in the middle of the night, Spider-Man is, oh god, the sunlight, it's so bright!
And I like that. I much prefer it, in fact.
Yeah, it's colourful, expressive, and full of character, but really simplistic in the detail. It's incredibly expressive, and it plays with that. Like, some of the best character moments come from little gestures and expressions. I know it sounds like I'm gushing, but there are many qualities in the series I do like, because, like I said, the character, the animation is one of them, and especially in the action. There are a lot of creative action sequences, and simplistic but dynamic art style really helps there. But the writing is also really good. Like, there's obviously little self-aware bits that is kind of poking fun at superhero tropes, like, in Season 2, one of the first episodes has Spider-Man trying to see if he can fit thermals underneath his costume because he's realising that just wearing skin-tight spandex doesn't help in the winter months.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and he actually has the line, oh, this is what I get for designing the suit in the spring.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you've got the good animation, you've got the self-aware bits like that, but there are two factors in its writing that really make the series stand out. The first is continuity, which it handles really, really well. Stuff will happen in certain episodes that seem small. It comes back later to have a bigger effect certain down the line. Like most Spider-Man plots, the Venom symbiote and the Black Suit story arcs do come into play. In fact, they serve the main part of the finale of Season 1, but it is handled a lot better here, namely because they decide to take it slowly, because the problem with a lot of the representations of the Black Symbiote arc I've seen is that they always try to do it too quickly. Like, it's always one event that makes Eddie Brock hate Peter, and it's one event that makes Peter feel angry, decide, oh yes, I'm going to start obeying the violent psychotic suit within me. But in this series, they actually take it slow. Like, when Peter first gets the black costume, it's mainly just him being confident in confrontations and just being cold in general to his friends, rather than what happened in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, that thing we don't talk about.
Yeah, so it's handled a lot better in that regard, but it's also handled a lot better in Eddie Brock, as instead of him just showing up, being screwed over by Peter once, and then blown it out of all proportion, he's actually shown in the first episode, and they start off as good friends, but then it's a series of small events that happens that, whilst you know that there was good reasons for what happened on Peter's end, you can clearly see how, from Eddie's eyes, Peter could come off as just the most unlikable guy imaginable.
Wow, I'm pleased to know that they actually put some thought into that.
Yeah, it's more understandable and more natural when it happens, and it all leads to, I won't go into the blow-by-blow of how the finale happens, but the way both Venom and Spider-Man come to a head, and the way Peter actually breaks out the symbiote in the finale, that is handled really well. So I think this is actually my favourite version of the whole Black Symbiote arc, just because of how they took their time and kept it about characters first and foremost, and not just about, oh my god, Venom's such a cool monster.
Yeah, I mean, like with Hellsing, Rule of Cool is awesome and all, but sometimes you have to have a bit more thought put into things.
Yeah, and so the continuity is well handled, and that's always a plus, but I'd say personally, my favourite part of it is the character writing. Very specifically, the fact that you have Peter Parker and all the others. They're teenagers, and they do stupid things that make you want to slap them because they're teenagers. The adults, on the other hand, act like adults.
Oh, good!
Yeah, they okay, you've got J. Jonah Jameson, who is a bit explosive, and there's the occasional person who mistrusts Spider-Man, but every single adult actually does have a sensible reason for their actions. Even the villains. One of my personal favourite villains is Tombstone, who is handled really, really well when you consider that this is a kids show, because basically Tombstone is a crime boss, and his plans, they do involve creating supervillains, but his plans are still really sensible in that he's not doing it for the sake of, I want to rule this city. No, he's doing it because he's trying to make a profit first and foremost. Like, his initial goal for creating supervillains is that, okay, if we create something that's a big enough threat, Spider-Man's too busy dealing with that to take care of the small petty crime, which is where we actually make our money.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that. That is actually a clever plan.
Yeah, the adults actually do have sensible thinking behind their plans, and I should also mention, just while we're on the subject of Tombstone, again, this is a kids show, but a good chunk of Season 2 is based around a gang war.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're all super-powered gangsters, because again, this is still a kids show based on a comic book, but Season 2 is based around a series of crime families fighting each other, which ultimately culminates in an awesome episode, which is a four-way brawl between Spider-Man and the three heads of the crime family outside an opera house.
Wow, I think I need to watch this series.
Yes, indeed. And, this is awesome just on its own, but one of the reasons I love it is because it avoids something I really never liked about Spider-Man, which they stray into way too often. It's also the reason why one of my favourite characters, especially in Season 2, is Captain Stacy, who is this police detective, in that there are so many times when, because of the whole Bugle thing, adaptations of Spider-Man go with the authorities don't trust Spider-Man because he's a vigilante and they're afraid he'll take the law into his own hands. And they only get away with framing Spider-Man in one episode. After that, there are many times when characters will try to blame Spider-Man, but Captain Stacy, who is a professional police detective, just takes one look at the situation and goes, no, I don't think so. Let's move on. Like, there is one instance, they arrive at a bank robbery that took place. The police are seeing all this damage, and then one of the cops goes, aha! There's some of Spider-Man's webbing here. I knew it was only a matter of time before he went out of control. And then Captain Stacy just goes, no, the damage is not his style. It's more likely he fought them here. Which...
Wow.
Yeah, it's just... Well, first off, in a superhero context, having a cop who's professional is good enough, but having someone who can basically just derail a bad plot before it starts is just one of the reasons I freaking love Captain Stacy as a character. I could go on for ages just listing off examples of great character moments or funny lines or action sequences, because it's a series full of this kind of thing. It's just... I just absolutely love it, that it shows that you can not only have a kid series with good writing, but you can have a superhero with great writing that doesn't feel the need to alienate kids or try to come off as serious and dark. In fact, they don't focus on the brooding side of Spider-Man. In fact, the very first episode begins and ends with the same line, tell me there's something better than this. Go ahead. Try. Because, yeah, the life of Spider-Man is hard, and there are moments when it causes Peter grief, but he still does it because it is amazingly fun to him. And you can kind of see why when he's just spinning through the buildings and just taking down bad guys so easily, you know?
Yeah. Wow. For once, I'm actually interested in a superhero cartoon. Normally, I hate superhero comic books because they're just so oversaturated with over-the-top, overpowered characters, but I've always preferred Marvel, and Spider-Man's always appealed to me, so I'm interested.
Yeah, I would definitely say, out of all of the adaptations I've seen, I would definitely say Spectacular Spider-Man is up there, if not the best Spider-Man cartoon of all time. I've got to be honest. I would definitely recommend it. You can buy it on Google Play at a very cheap price. The only slight problem is that Google Play system is a bit confusing, but I'm sure you can get it in many other places as well.
Yeah, I am definitely going to look into it.
I can thoroughly recommend Spectacular Spiderman, and I better stop the review here because there's so many examples I want to bring up.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
If I keep going, I'm going to spoil the entire series at this rate.
Yeah. So, as it is, I'll just take it as a total recommendation.
Indeed. So then, very quickly moving on into our last section.
Quickfire reviews!
This is the section where we review everything else we've read, watched or played, but within the maximum time limit of 60 seconds. Sven, do you have anything?
Well, I can very briefly review another thing that I played a long time ago that I recently got back into.
Outlaws, 1997 LucasArts first-person shooter, and my first first-person shooter ever. Basically imagine a Call of Duty set in the Wild West with revolvers and lever-action rifles. And a plot. I can totally recommend it, because surprisingly the plot is decent if the average stock Wild West revenge plot, and the gameplay is hilariously fast-paced and fun.
Awesome. You have mentioned that many times to me, so I need to check it out one of these days.
Yeah, I at least recommend the cutscenes because of the voice cast. Like, Cam Clark is the first boss, and John Delancey is one of the main antagonists. Like, you can only imagine my surprise whenever I realized that Discord from MLP was Dr. Death from Outlaws.
Wow. Or Q if there are any Star Trek fans out there.
Yeah, and I do actually know Q, even though I don't watch Star Trek. Not out of malice, I just don't watch Star Trek.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I already watched that series on a casual note and through SF Dupree's reviews. Anyway.
Yeah, long story short, I at least recommend Outlaws for the cutscenes and the voice cast. And if you ever get the chance to play it, it is on Good Old Games right now for a discounted price.
Nice.
It was also released in 1997, so if your computer can't play it, dude, get that computer checked out.
Yeah, I mean, it's managed to play the demo for Freedom Planet, so hey. And on my end, I've got two things to review quickly. First,
Just to quickly go over something I mentioned on Twitter, Chappie, the latest film by the guy who made District 9 and Elysium. It's an enjoyable film and certainly an interesting twist on the whole robot AI concept and the fact that it's a robot raised by gangsters. Unfortunately, well, to quote what I said on Twitter, it is a boulderous silliness that gains speed as it rolls down the hill before plummeting straight off the cliff. It doesn't help matters that we got to the emotional action-packed climax and both me and my sister were in hysterics while we were watching it. So in short, enjoyable but kind of silly.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
Well, let me put it this way. First, a guy has a killer robot armed with cluster missiles and he misses all but two people. Second, said climax could have been avoided if someone had just reported the guy with the killer robot to their boss instead of just walking away.
Oh my god.
And another quick one.
Shantae the Pirate's Curse, an amusing platformer which I started recently that's available on the Wii U. The story itself is lighthearted and enjoyable, and I'll get into it more on a future VCT, but yeah, the game is pretty much lighthearted fun with likeable characters and a very quirky sense of humour that is sometimes dark, sometimes suggestive, and sometimes just plain weird.
Like me. Wait.
It also has a enjoyable Metroid/Castlevania style gameplay, and if nothing else, I enjoyed for the line, I will be the greatest filler boss of all time.
Today, in things probably said by Vidar in Tales of Symphonia. Wait.
Oh dear. I believe that comes to an end of the show. Once again, thank you for all the questions, and I don't think me and Sven can stress enough how much we can recommend our main reviews.
Yes. Well, for once, we pretty much had an all-positive review section.
Yeah, it's definitely a good note to end on. So, with that note, we've reached the end of the show. So, until next month, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader. This podcast has also been brought to you by The Walking Dead: The Light of Day, coming soon to CrusaderWrites at Tumblr.com. Tumblr without an E for some reason. Shameless plug!
Monkey broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright was misused, send an email to thejoninmonkey@yahoo.co.uk. For more news and media reviews, follow me on Twitter @thejoninmonkey, and go to thejoninmonkey.podbean.com for previous podcasts and MP3 downloads. All music used belongs to the original owners. Until next month, have fun, kids!